Okay, I am back to share some updates, some reviews on 20 different makeup products I've been testing out. A lot of these are brand new launches. Some of them have gone absolutely viral. They are getting so much hype on social media. And some of them are brand new, but they're products I've been needing to test out. So I thought I would just come back and let you know what I think now that I've been using these products for a few weeks. All of these products are higher end products, which means they do come with higher end price tags. I definitely wouldn't say I'm easier on drugstore makeup because even if something is inexpensive, I still think there is a certain standard of quality it should be held to. But definitely when it comes to high-end makeup, I feel like that has to be the case. Like, you're not going to spend $26 on a lip product unless it is outstanding. So a lot of these products, in my opinion, aren't worth the money, although there are some that I've been loving so much that I think are going to be absolute staples. So I actually split this video into 4 parts. At the very bottom of my list are the products that I personally did not like. I don't think they're worth the money. I feel like they have too many cons. Next up, I'll talk about products that I actually did like, but I still don't think they're necessarily worth the money for one reason or another. Then I will talk about solid products that work really, really well. And at the very top or the very end of the video, I'll share my absolute favorite products that have become true daily staples that are just some of the best launches of 2024 so far. So that was kind of wordy, but you'll see as we go through it. If you want to jump ahead, just check the description box below, or you can slide right along that bottom bar if you only want to hear about the good products and not the bad ones, or kind of skip around in the video. Okay, let's start with this product from Urban Decay. So I'm definitely a fan of the original Urban Decay All Nighter Setting Spray. I think it works really well to lock your makeup into place. And I know they have quite a few versions, and I don't know if I've really tried any of the other ones. And at this point, I feel like maybe I should just stick with the original because I love it and I think it works so well. But I decided to try this one. I actually got it in the mail as PR. It's the Hyaluronic Acid Watermelon Fruit Extract Setting Spray. So first of all, the initial difference to me is that this one does smell like watermelon, which could be a pro or a con for you, depending on whether or not you're sensitive to fragrance in makeup. This one is actually supposed to be more of a hydrating, dewy setting spray. Initially, when I spray this on my skin, I don't know that the finish is a lot different than when I use the original. My skin doesn't look extra dewy or glowy. It doesn't really feel any more hydrated, but throughout the day, my makeup definitely breaks down faster and starts to move around. My skin gets oily a lot more quickly than it does with the original. So if you have dry skin, this might be a little bit more of an ideal option because it isn't quite as intense as the original. If you have oily skin or you're truly looking for a makeup setting spray to extend the wear of your makeup, I don't know that I would recommend this one because my makeup definitely moves with this product, even after just like 4 hours. Personally, I don't recommend trying this one unless you have extremely dry skin. Maybe you would enjoy it, but for me, it just doesn't extend the wear of my makeup at all, which is my main goal when it comes to a setting spray. The next product is something that I've actually had for a little while. I've just never been able to fully make my mind up about how I feel when it comes to this product. Every single time I wear it, to be honest with you, I wish that I used something else. It's the Milk Makeup Pore Eclipse Translucent Loose Setting Powder. I actually really like the primer from this line, and I know a ton of people really enjoy this powder. What I do like about it is the fact that it's a very lightweight setting powder. It is incredibly finely milled. It's like an airy, non-detectable type of powder, so it doesn't feel like you're wearing anything on your skin. That's pretty much where the benefits end for me personally. It is marketed as like a pore blurring makeup extending powder, and I don't find that it does either one of those things. It definitely enhances texture on me. Whenever I'm dealing with any sort of breakout or dryness, this powder kind of clings to those areas and enhances it. And then on top of that, it definitely doesn't extend the wear of my makeup. My skin gets extremely oily when I use this powder. There are just so many powders out there. I actually have one in like my very top tier category that I'm going to talk about in today's video that I think is amazing that I would recommend trying over this one. So stay tuned for that. Okay, this next product is something I truly thought I was going to love. Like, I was fully prepared for this to become my new go-to primer, and it doesn't really work well for me, which is kind of surprising. If you've tried this product, I'm really curious to hear what you think. It is the One Size Oil Sucker Extreme Mattifying Alkaline Primer. So first of all, if you do not have extremely oily skin, stay far away from this. This really is only meant for people who have the oiliest skin ever because it really does suck all of the oil out of your skin. And I thought that was just like a claim that a brand makes when it comes to like an oil controlling primer. No, like the second you apply this to the skin, it starts working. And it even says online or like on the back of the tube. Yeah, it says Apply a smooth, thin layer onto completely dry skin in oily areas only. And only is like fully capitalized, or every letter in that word is capitalized. And then it says for best results, allow the product to dry for 3 minutes while remaining expressionless. When I read those instructions, I was like, those are some really intense instructions for a primer. But that's because as it dries, it just like fully tightens your skin and it feels like it's literally like sucking all of the moisture out of your skin. It's a little bit uncomfortable. Your skin feels so tight, so dry. I mean, it keeps your skin oil free for a long time. I had my foundation on the first time I wore it for like 8 to 10 hours and my skin was definitely still looking mattified. So this product does work. It does what it claims to do. But I will say on the areas where I applied this product, and that's the areas where I tend to get oily, like my nose, my T-zone, this area right here, it fully enhanced every single pore, every just like tiny touch of texture I had on my skin. Because when I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, like 3 or 4 hours into the day, I was like, what is going on with my skin? It looked like it aged my skin 10 years. So I think if you buy this product, you just have to be extremely careful. Use the tiniest amount in really like the only areas where you need it. And then maybe you can go in with a blurring primer on top. I'm sure there's someone out there who's listening and they're like, no, that is the primer for me. Like my skin gets oily in 5 minutes. I need something like that because I really do think this product is probably like the best at what it claims to do. I just didn't expect it to be quite so extreme, even though it's in the name, it's in the description. So who knows, maybe you will enjoy this if you have extremely oily skin or you live in a super hot, super humid climate. I think it's a little bit too extreme for me personally. The next product I want to talk about is something that I was kind of on the fence about. I was like, should I mention it in this category or the next one? Because for me, it wasn't like the absolute worst foundation I've ever tried, but it's definitely not something that I love that's going to be a go-to that I'll end up using really often. It's from One Size. It's the Turn Up the Base Full Beat Liquid Foundation. First of all, this is a very lightweight foundation. Even though it is a full coverage, super matte foundation, it doesn't feel heavy on the skin by any means. It feels pretty weightless. It blends out really beautifully, whether you're using a matte primer or a hydrating primer. I've worn it 4 different times at this point, and I've tried it with all different primers, all different setting powders. And I definitely prefer it most with a blurring primer or a good hydrating primer, but not a gripping primer. It doesn't play best with a gripping primer. It looks fine in the end, but it takes a little bit of extra effort as you're what's the word, blending it out. But I would say this foundation is maybe a little bit too matte for me. It stays matte pretty much all day long, which is great. I wore it one day and after like 8 hours, I looked in the mirror expecting to look pretty oily and I didn't. I felt like my skin looked really matte even after 8 hours. The only thing about this foundation, which is like a big con for me, is that it looks like foundation on the skin. It has like that makeup-y, almost slightly cakey look, which is weird because it is so lightweight. It doesn't feel heavy, but it looks a little bit heavy. If you're looking at me super up close, you'd probably be like, oh, you have foundation on. Whereas if you're far away, it looks pretty good. So I feel like it's maybe one of those foundations that I would use if it was like really hot outside, I was going to a wedding, I was going to be like dancing and I just wouldn't have time to like touch up my makeup, then I might reach for this foundation because it truly does look flawless. And on video and in photos, it looks really good. But in person, like you can tell you're wearing makeup. This definitely isn't like the worst foundation I've ever tried by any means. I'm going to keep it because I feel like there is a time and a place for it. Probably not as we head into fall and winter, but maybe again, once it gets warmer outside, that's when I would end up reaching for it a little bit more. Okay, moving on to the next category. These are actually products I really like, but I don't necessarily think they're going to be worth the money for everyone. You can probably either find something like these products at the drugstore that ends up being very similar in terms of formula or consistency or quality for a much less expensive price point, or you just might already own something in your collection, drugstore or high-end, that performs pretty similarly because they're not necessarily innovative, mind-blowing products, but they are good. Let's start with this product. I finally tried it out. I kind of went back and forth. I don't know that I've ever tried a high-end lip oil because there are so many drugstore lip oils, and by the time I was getting into lip oils, every brand was launching one at the drugstore. So I kind of just stuck with those because I felt like there were so many great formulas. But I finally tried the Fenty Beauty Cherry Treat Conditioning Lip Oil. First of all, this smells really good. It does have like a light cherry candy scent. It's not too over the top. I love the applicator because it is a little bit bigger. It's very similar to the applicator on the NYX Fat Oil Lip Drips. The shade is nice. It just lightly tints your lips. It's not too over the top, and the texture is perfect. It's a nice medium thickness, so it doesn't end up wearing off in just a few seconds, and it's not too thick or too sticky. All of that sounds amazing, but can it be replicated or can it be duplicated at the drugstore? I feel like it can. Like out of all of the lip oils I have, I feel like there are a few formulas that end up feeling the exact same. The NYX Hydra Kiss lip oils, or no, the Essence Hydra Kiss lip oils, the Catrice tinted lip oils, like those hug my lips in the same exact way as this product. Do they smell as good? Not necessarily. Do I like the applicators as much? Again, no. So it kind of comes down to experience. Like if you are sold on this product, if you love every single aspect about it, maybe it is worth the $24 price point to you. But if you'd rather splurge on something else from Fenty, like a complexion product, a blush, and you'd rather save in one category, I feel like this is a category where you could save and find something of similar quality at the drugstore. It's basically the same case with this lip product from Bare Minerals. This is their Dewy Lip Gloss Balm. So I have two different shades. I'm wearing a little bit of the shade Friendship. I ended up reapplying it like just when I got to this section of the video because my lipstick was starting to wear off just a little bit. This is a very gorgeous formula. It's kind of like a glossy balm with a tint of color. I think they have some deeper shades, but in general, they end up looking pretty sheer on the lips. So they're great to wear on their own if you just want a hint of color, but they're also nice to wear over a lip liner or maybe a lipstick that just requires a little bit of extra shine. They're really comfortable, very easy to reapply. They feel incredibly hydrating on the lips. So everything about this product sounds great, but honestly, there are alternatives at the drugstore that I find to come very, very close. Specifically, I'm thinking of a J.Cat product that I tried not too long ago. I think it's called like their Dew Glow Lip Hydrator. I'll link it in the description box below if you're interested. There's also a product from Burt's Bees that I like. I almost think the ColourPop glowing lip balms or glowing lipsticks are pretty similar to these two. So as much as I like this product, I just don't know that it's necessarily worth the splurge when there are more affordable alternatives out there. Okay, next let's talk about this eyeshadow palette from Too Faced. First of all, the packaging is super, super cute. I don't necessarily buy products based on packaging, but I can definitely appreciate a very cute palette, and Too Faced typically does a good job. I like that they're doing these tin palettes again. I feel like you either love them or you hate them. When this palette first launched, I feel like a lot of people were like, oh, that's a neutral palette with a pop of color. That is definitely not the case to me personally. I feel like this has a lot of color in it. You do get a couple of staple neutrals, which is great if you do want to do more of a toned down, simple look. But in general, I feel like this palette is actually more colorful. There are greens in here. There are some like yellow tones. There's a lot of berry tone shadows. Today, I am wearing something pretty similar to what I had on in the video where I tried it the first time. So if you want to see how I got like a very similar look, I'll link that below. I have this as a transition, this in the crease, this color, and then this color in the outer corner and the crease. And then the difference is in the other video, I used a single shadow on the lid. I have this color on the lid and then this color as a highlight. I think these tones are so gorgeous, really perfect for fall. This does have a caramel apple scent, which again, if you are not a fan of scented makeup, you're going to want to skip over it because it's pretty intense. I think it's a really good scent, to be honest. It kind of reminds me a little bit of a candle, but if you don't like fragrance palettes, you won't like it for that reason. As for the actual quality, it's good. There are a few shadows in here that are a little bit more difficult to work with. This shadow and this shadow end up looking a little bit patchy on the eyes. I'm not sure how my makeup looks today. I mean, I feel like for the most part it's well blended, but it took me a minute to get there with these two shades. I have this shade all over the lid as well, which is so gorgeous. So some of the metallics in here are very vibrant, very intense, like this one. Some of them are kind of sheer topper shadows, like this one and then the green one, or maybe this green one right here. Both the green ones. I wouldn't say that makes them bad quality shadows. In the past, when I was like such a fan of intense, rich, super pigmented shadows, and I tried something that wasn't that way, I would automatically write it off as like, oh, that's a poor quality shadow. That is definitely not the case. There is a time and a place for a good soft sheen, something that works as a topper shadow, a buildable shadow. This palette definitely has a mix. So you have to be a fan of softer buildable shadows and more intense rich shadows to enjoy this palette fully, because you really do get a mix of that when it comes to the shimmer shades. For the most part, the matte shades blend out extremely well, like I said, with the exception of these two, but you can get there if you're just willing to put the work in. In the end, I do really like this palette. I'm enjoying it a lot more than I initially thought I would, but for $54, I do think there are a couple of inconsistencies within this palette, and $54 is a lot. I know it's become normalized to spend like $50, $60, $70 on an eyeshadow palette, but that is actually so wild if you think about it. Like, eyeshadow has gotten so expensive, and if you're anything like me and you have multiple palettes, there is a chance you could probably pull together a couple of palettes and end up creating a color story pretty similar to this one. Is it a lot of fun? Yeah. Is the quality, pretty good? Yeah, for sure. So if you feel like you really want this palette, in the end, I don't think you'll be disappointed by it, but keep in mind that there are a few shadows in there that don't perform as highly as you would expect for that price point. I also tried the Disco Crush Multi-Use Eye and Face Sparkles from Too Faced. I actually thought these would be a good alternative to the Urban Decay Moon Dust shadows, which I do really love, but they only have a limited amount of shades available from Urban Decay. I actually just ended up buying the Urban Decay Moon Dust Holiday Palette that was available at Sephora, which is a really great deal if you break it down. I forget the exact value breakdown. I talked about it in one of my recent Sephora gift set videos, but that was a really good deal. For $39, you get 4 different shadows, and even though they're a little bit smaller than the original Moon Dust shadows, you still get a good amount of product in there. So that palette, which comes with 4 shadows, is $39, and one of these is $30. I mean, this Urban Decay palette, or this Too Faced palette, is $54. So for less than the cost of 2 single shadows, you could get this entire palette. So that just goes to show, like, these are very expensive, and I think the price point is way too high, especially because the quality is not as good as Urban Decay in my opinion. The Too Faced shadows do come in some really gorgeous colors, so I will say that. I feel like they have some prettier shades than Urban Decay in general. They're not as firmly pressed as the Urban Decay shadows. These are definitely a little bit thicker. They almost have, I wouldn't go as far as to call them like a chunky glitter, but it is definitely a bigger glitter particle than Urban Decay. It's not like a soft, refined glitter, which these do end up looking very sparkly, very beautiful on the eyes. They give you that wet looking sheen. They're really stunning. So I do like the way they look, but because they aren't, because they're a little bit thicker, I feel like they end up just falling all over your face, both as you initially apply them and throughout the day. The best way to wear these would probably be on top of like a sticky base or even like a glitter primer. But if you have a good amount of glitter shadows, if you have a lot of ColourPop Super Shocks or Urban Decay Moon Dust shadows, you could skip over these. Okay, this next category, I'm just calling solid products that work well. These are all products I'm really loving. I'm definitely enjoying. I'm happy I bought them. I think they're worth the money. They aren't necessarily going to replace any of my holy grail products, but they are definitely products that I would reach for on an everyday basis that I think are great options. Let's start with this, the I Need a Warm palette from Natasha Denona. This is a really beautiful palette. I feel like it is the perfect option for fall. If you are someone who loves warm tones, but your collection is kind of filled with a lot of palettes that were made from like 2016 to 2020 from brands who did like over the top orangey red warm toned palettes, this one might feel a little bit more refreshing. There are definitely some more colorful, vibrant shades in here, like this row right here. But for the most part, I feel like it is a less intense warm palette compared to other options I own. The standout shades to me in this palette, and really all of her palettes, would have to be the metallics. She has a new formula right here that's really beautiful. It is so smooth, so reflective, really stunning on the eyes. And then she has a new matte formula. Correct me if I'm wrong. As I was using this for the first time, I was experiencing a little bit of patchiness with her powder shadows. And some of the comments on my video were like, oh, that's because those are her cream to powders. And her cream to powders, in my opinion, are best applied with more of a stamping motion than a swiping motion. So I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense, because I was kind of blending them onto the eyes. Then when I went back and read on Sephora's website after I used it, I'm pretty sure all of the mattes in here are her typical matte formula, with the exception of this one, which is actually called her Slip Cream Matte Formula. It has a little bit of a sheen to it, but the other shades, like this one's a little bit patchy on me and this one too, those are just like her typical matte formula. So I don't really know why I had an issue applying those. Those are really the only two shadows I had trouble with in the entire palette, but I don't typically have an issue with her matte formula. So just something that I wanted to point out, for an almost $70 palette, I feel like there really shouldn't be any issues. When it comes to Natasha Denona, I'm a big fan, but I do think as far as her palettes go, this one probably could be easily duplicated within your existing collection if you have warm toned palettes, either from ColourPop or Too Faced or really any brand out there. It is very beautiful. I personally like that it's like a typical, neutral palette, just a little bit less intense than other ones out there, but it isn't necessarily like a mind-blowing, spectacular, super unique palette. So it just comes down to whether or not you think her formula is worth the money. In my opinion, her metallic formula alone makes her shadows worth it for me. I do love it. I just don't think it's necessarily the most, I wouldn't call it her must-have palette out of everything she's done, in my opinion, but I do like it. I have a couple of products from Fenty. So these actually came out in the summertime. It was a limited edition collection, and they had like blush highlighter hybrids and then also some gloss bomb lip oils. They're not available on Sephora's website any longer. I think there's one shade left, but you can actually still buy them on the Fenty website if you're interested in trying them. So I have the shade of Frosted Buns. When I got it in the mail, I was like, oh, that color is not going to look good on me. When I actually applied it to the lips, I was instantly sold. It is so beautiful, especially with more of like a typical fall time look. I mean, obviously it depends on what you wear in the fall, but if you go for like berry toned eyes, or you're pairing it with I need a warm, or you even just have like a basic matte smoky eye on, this is so stunning because it is incredibly glittery, which I don't normally love glittery lip oils or glittery lip products in general, but this one looks so stunning on the lips, and I really love the texture of this. So I hope they end up bringing this back as like part of their permanent line, because this lip oil is a lot different than the other lip oil that I talked about earlier. In my opinion, this one is worth the high-end price point because it is so smooth, so glossy, really shiny, very reflective, and it smells amazing. It has like this delicious vanilla, kind of like waffle cone scent. I do think this is incredibly moisturizing. It's like the perfect texture. The applicator is really nice. And again, normally I'm not big into higher end lip oils, but in my opinion, this one kind of leans more in the direction of a gloss. It's just not quite as sticky as some of their other gloss options. And then Fenty also ended up launching blushes. They did lip products too. I haven't tried their liners or their new Gloss Bomb sticks, but I did try one of their Fenty Cheeks, or I did try one of the Fenty Cheeks Suede Powder Blushes, and I have the shade Bacon Cakes. This is a very lightweight formula, and I think based on the photos that I saw online, I thought it was going to be thicker, kind of like a heavier, creamy formula, but it is so lightweight, incredibly smoothing on the skin. And it has this gorgeous blurring quality to it, which is amazing because that is an area on my skin where I especially love to kind of see something that blurs because I do have a lot of texture there. And this really just makes the skin look perfected and smooth. It's very long wearing, but again, because it's so lightweight, it doesn't even feel like you have anything on your skin. Long wearing, I really don't have any complaints about this. They do have some shimmer versions, or I think like full on glitter versions, which I don't know that I would try those. I don't usually love like a super glittery blush. And I feel like a lot of the other shades are shades that I don't typically wear. So I'm not sure if I'll end up buying additional shades, but I do really like this one. Okay, the last product in this category is the Tarte Maracuja Juicy Plumping Lip Oil. I have the shade Cinnamon. I love the Maracuja Juicy Lip line. They have a bunch of products at this point, and the original formula is a little bit thicker. It's very glossy, a little bit balmy. This is very different. Like this one feels like a true lip oil. It's not too thin, but it definitely has almost like a serum-like texture. I actually think the applicator is perfect for this type of product because it allows you to apply it very evenly to the lips without going over the top. This one definitely has a strong tingle. I do think it plumps up the lips just a little bit. Like if I apply this and then wait 5 or 10 minutes, I do feel like overall my lips end up looking a little bit bigger than they did before I wore this product. They also feel very moisturized, very, very smooth. And I think this color is nice because it just gives a hint of color without being too intense. They have a bunch of them though. They have rich shades, more subtle shades. I think some of them have shimmer, some don't. So really a good selection to choose from. These are $26, which again is a lot for a lip oil. I probably wouldn't end up buying another one at the full price. I feel like I've kind of switched, and for a while I was really into high-end lip products, and then over the past year I just discovered so many good drugstore lip products I really loved that it's harder to justify a very high-end price point for a lip product. But if these were ever on sale during 21 Days of Beauty, during Black Friday, I would grab a couple more because I think they're really nice. We made it to the last category. These are my top favorites. Out of everything I tried, these are the products that have become go-to staples. I cannot stop using them. I use them every single day. I can't put them down. They really are so good. In my opinion, worth the hype, worth the money. If I lost them, I would immediately run out and repurchase them. Okay, let's start with these two products. So I love using these products together, but I have tested them both separately with other products as well, and they work just as great. So these are both from Huda Beauty. I have the new Easy Blur Primer and Easy Blur Foundation. I cannot get enough of these products. So let's talk about the primer first. Obviously, these products work really well together, but even without the foundation, this primer is so gorgeous. It is incredibly smoothing. It really does blur the skin. And what's interesting is as you first apply this product, you don't necessarily see a big difference. It feels really good on the skin. It has a little bit of a cooling aspect, and it definitely feels smooth. So as you apply it, you'll feel a little bit of a difference, but it doesn't necessarily feel like your skin is made of silk or, you have like the most perfect, flawless, texture-free skin in the entire world. But when you apply foundation on top of this primer, that's what your skin looks like. I have tried this with probably like 3 or 4 different foundations, including the Huda Beauty one, and every single foundation I apply on top of this primer looks better than it does either without primer or with any other primer I've tried. One of you asked me how I feel about this compared to the Cali Ray primer, which is another one of my favorite smoothing primers. I actually feel like they're very, very similar. This one is extra smoothing, whereas the Cali Ray one has a little bit more of a moisturizing feel to it. But the Huda Beauty one is less expensive. I want to say it's like $5 or $6 less expensive. And because they end up feeling and looking very similar on the skin, honestly, I'd save a few dollars and just go with Huda Beauty. I would say the only potential issue is that this is not the most oil controlling primer out there. It doesn't claim to be. It's basically a silicone-free primer that kind of feels like your typical silicone primer. So with those types of primers, you're going to get like that smooth blurred effect, but you're not necessarily going to get a ton of oil control. So if you have extremely oily skin, you might want something that's a little bit more oil controlling, but I do think this does a really great job at smoothing out the skin. So that leads us to the Easy Blur Foundation. Obviously, again, I love using these together, and I feel like that really is the perfect combo, but even if I'm not using that primer, I feel like this foundation is so gorgeous, either just directly on top of sunscreen or on top of any other primer that I pair it with. I have not loved a foundation like this in a very long time. I feel like it takes a lot for me to fall in love with a foundation and for it to become a true go-to. The texture of this foundation is so lightweight. It basically has this runny, almost serum type feel to it as you squeeze it out on the back of your hand, which is what I love because as you apply it to the skin, not only does it blend out super quickly, it doesn't look heavy on the skin. And I think that's kind of what I was looking for when I tried the One Size foundation. I tried this after the Huda Beauty one. So naturally, I was kind of comparing this one to Huda Beauty because they're both fuller coverage foundations. But after trying a formula that basically melts into the skin and doesn't look like makeup on the skin, I feel like that was on my mind even more when it came to this one because it just looked very makeup-y. This can be built up to be more full coverage on the skin, but you can also sheer it out very easily, especially because it is such a thin foundation. So you can easily buff it in, or you can use a sponge to get more of a natural effect. And again, it's very long wearing, very smoothing on the skin. So you can almost use it like you would a skin tint or use it like you would more of a full coverage foundation. I will say by the end of the day, my skin can definitely start to look a little bit more on the oily side than it does with something like the One Size foundation, which is more matte. but I feel like that's to be expected with a foundation that's not so completely matte. And I can kind of deal with it because I feel like my skin looks like skin, even though it looks a little bit oily and there might be a little bit of wear if I was touching my face, because it's definitely not a transfer proof foundation. I'm okay with that because it doesn't look like I have a heavy foundation on my skin. So I'm absolutely loving it. I've heard from people who have dry skin say they enjoy it, combo skin, oily skin. So overall, it really is such a hit, and I feel like it has the potential to be one of my top favorites of all time. Another complexion product I'm really enjoying is this one from Makeup by Mario. I didn't necessarily have the highest hopes for this. I didn't buy it hoping or thinking that I wouldn't like it, but I just didn't expect it to be like a game-changing product for me, and it really is. This is the Surreal Skin Soft Blur Setting Powder. I have the shade 2 Neutral Light. This is the most beautiful powder, no matter how you want to use it. Whether you want to set your under eye powders and kind of bake and use a good amount of this, whether you want to lightly dust it all over your face, use a velour puff, a brush, no matter how I use this product and no matter what I layer it on top of, it looks amazing every single time. This has the most obvious blur out of any powder I've tried. And if I'm using it on top of a foundation that tends to enhance texture, or on top of a foundation that ends up looking kind of makeup-y, for lack of a better word, I know I've said that a few times, it definitely helps the foundation look a little bit more natural. So it almost has a little bit of like a correcting property to it. And if you pair it with something that already looks good, like the Huda Beauty foundation, your skin just looks absolutely flawless. And take it from me, that does not happen a lot for my skin. My skin breaks out like every other day. And I swear this product has made such a difference for me because it just kind of erases and blurs all of the texture away. I will say this is not the most mattifying powder I've ever tried. So again, my skin ends up getting pretty oily, probably a lot faster with this powder compared to something like the Huda Beauty powder, which ends up being more matte. As we head into the winter season and my skin is hopefully a little less oily, I can tend to deal with some combo skin, a little bit of dryness. I think this will actually be my go-to because last winter I wasn't using the Huda Beauty one as often. I didn't need something quite so mattifying or quite so heavy. So I could really see this becoming my go-to staple. One more lip product that I think is truly worth the hype, the Ole Henriksen Pow Preserve Peptide Lip Treatment. There are so many lip balms, so many lip treatments that get super hyped up on social media, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, they're all the same. They're all like a typical lip balm. They're not going to be that much different. I was wrong. Now, first of all, these are marketed as actual lip treatments and not lip balms. So that could definitely have something to do with it. They have very nourishing ingredients, very moisturizing, rich ingredients, and the formula itself is a little bit thicker than a typical lip balm. So it actually lasts on the lips longer. And I feel like it has longer lasting results overall. And I have seen such a difference in the way my lips look and feel since using these. So I have the original one. This one is good. It's like a milky clear. It looks basically clear on the lips. It has a citrus scent. My absolute favorite scent is the strawberry one. This one actually smells like a strawberry milkshake in the best way. It's just very light, perfect for the daytime. The pink shade is really pretty, but I like the way this one looks on the lips the best. This one is Cocoa Cream. I think they have a few more shades, and I saw there was a holiday kit where you could get 2 for a discounted price. I think the set was $30 and it came, I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, I'm pretty sure it comes with 2 full-size lip products. One lip product is normally $22, so if you buy that kit, it's like buying one, getting one for $8. I'll link it below if you want to check it out. I'll probably share it in my next holiday set breakdown video, but I definitely understand the hype surrounding this product. I did compare it to Summer Fridays, just out of curiosity. So you get 0.4 ounces for $22 with the Ole Henriksen ones, and then Summer Fridays is 0.5 ounces for $24. So Ole Henriksen is slightly more expensive price per ounce, but Summer Fridays is more expensive upfront. Summer Fridays also has like twice as many options to choose from, but I feel like Ole Henriksen will get there. Like this is a newer product compared to Summer Fridays, so they don't have quite as many options to choose from. And I also feel like you don't have to reapply this product as often because it's thicker, it's longer lasting. So with Summer Fridays, it wears off a lot faster, so you end up reapplying it more throughout the day. Whereas with this one, I feel like I can reapply it and be good for hours because my lips feel so good. So even though there's a little less product, I feel like you'll go through it more slowly than Summer Fridays. Definitely worth the money in my opinion. I can't get enough of these. The last product that I want to talk about is the first holiday kit that I purchased in 2024. It is the Kosas Blushes Life Trio. So this is available on Sephora's website for $30. I did the breakdown. You know what? Let me just pull it up for you. Okay, so this comes with 3 mini blushes. Each mini blush in here is worth about $12.69 if you compare it to the full size blush, like how much you get for the price. So it ends up being around $38. They claim $45 in value. Some of the comments on that video said, oh, it comes with a bag. It doesn't come with a bag. It looks like a little gift bag, but then when you open it up, there's just like a little box with 3 mini blushes. It's very cute, but there isn't like an extra bag with this, just so you know. Anyway, the reason why I like this set is because you get 3 different shades for $1 more than the cost of a full-size blush. You get 3 permanent shades and a little more product. I think total it ends up being like 0.21 ounces of product versus 0.16, which is how much you get in a full-size blush. So they are mini blushes, but because this is a baked formula, it's not a formula that you're going to fly through. I mean, I would be surprised if I ended up using up one of these. So today I'm wearing the shade Euphoria, just like a very, very small amount of this. This formula is beautiful. It's not your typical baked blush formula. This one is butterflies. I'll swatch them for you. They definitely have like a nice glow to them, so they make the skin look very healthy. There's like a soft sheen, but it's not an overly intense glow. Like these don't have actual shimmer in them. They just have like that beautiful, healthy, kind of hydrated look to them when you wear them on the cheeks. And then this one is called Blist, which is kind of like a peachy pink. Anyway, this formula is the exact same formula that you get in the full-size blushes. I do have one, and I feel like these apply the same way. They look pretty sheer on the cheeks, so just something to keep in mind. You can build them up to some extent, but for the most part, this is definitely more of a sheer formula. It's something that I would use on a day where I don't want like a ton of color. I might layer it on top of another blush to get like that smooth, even finish, but get the color from something different, which might not appeal to you. If you want like an incredibly vibrant blush, this might not be the formula to go for, although I haven't tried all of the shades at this point, so there might be more vibrant shades online. This shade in person is a lot softer than it looks online. So just something to keep in mind. I feel like that's kind of the case across the board with these. That's everything I wanted to talk about in today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching and hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I would love to know if there's anything you want to see on my channel over the next few weeks. I'm making my schedule for October and the fall season, so I'll add any video ideas that you have to it if there's something that you're looking for. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll link a couple of related videos for you on the screen in case you want to hang out for a little bit longer. But otherwise, I will see you very soon with a new one. Bye.